gentlemen, welcome to the Deerland Podcast. It's episode number 2, and it is sweet November. We're at the newly christened Deerland headquarters right here in North Breck. I'm joined by the big buck killer, Mr. Louis Zinn, and our resident whitetail properties land specialist, Tyler Sellens. How you doing, guys?
Good. Doing good, Mike.
Good.
Good to see you.
Yes, so we've made it to episode number 2. Who would have thought?
We've come a long way.
We have. So
double the production.
That's right. So hopefully some of you guys are back for the second time. If you didn't catch our first episode, make sure you check it out as well. So we've got all sorts of different things we're going to talk about today. How about we do a little bit of talking about what's happened since the last time we've met? I think the last time we met was October the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And, now that the 19th is come and gone, we've all checked our trail cameras. And it appears that the 18th and 19th was a pretty happening time frame.
A lot of good activity in those days.
All three of us
Yes.
had good pictures of daylight movement. And we were doing podcasts. We weren't out in the woods.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not in a tree or in a blind.
Same here.
So I think that Friday, it would have been that Thursday evening, I think. Was that the evening it was raining? It was raining that evening. And so I was sitting in a blind and checked my cameras after the fact, and one of my shooters and a couple other bucks were standing right where my second Banks blind is currently positioned.
You sent me that picture.
Yes, early, at 5:30 in the afternoon or something. So even then, it was, warm and a steady rain. It wasn't a downpour, but it was a pretty steady rain, and, the bucks were out there feeding on the clover. So,
yep.
But as Louis said, we all had some good activity. I know myself on the 18th at 7:52 in the morning, I believe it was. My number one deer, he's not quite the biggest, but he's the number one on my list. I've followed him. This will be the 4th year now. He was 20 yards from my stand walking a trail at 7:52 in the morning, broad daylight, just standing there, heading by. So, and then that next night, 7:32, I think it was, so about 40 minutes after legal shooting light in there, the biggest deer that's on the farm, he was in the food plot right by my original Banks blind in what I call the small field, a little half acre food plot. He was out there messing around, a couple other deer out there as well. He kind of bumped them around a little bit from what I could tell from the different camera angles. And he was up in the top of the plot earlier, and then about 25 minutes later, he left the plot and went by another camera and headed back into the timber. So he was messing around for a little while there. So yeah, that was a couple exciting days. And then that Sunday, the 21st, I happened to have a chance to take a doe and got that done, which was exciting for me. I think even a lot of the guys, you guys and some of the other people that I hunt with, hadn't realized how little experience I had bow hunting or, opportunities. And I had only shot 2 arrows at deer in my life, and those were both October 9th, 2015. I shot a doe to get my first ever deer, and then 20 minutes later, a 150-inch buck comes out, and I was able to harvest him as well. And those are the only 2 deer I've ever killed. And 16 and 17, I didn't harvest a doe, didn't have an opportunity at a buck. So it was good to get one under my belt and kind of, reassure myself I could do it. 32-yard shot. There was 4 does out there at one time. It was later in the evening, getting close to last light, and I shot. Shot felt good. I didn't have a lighted knock at the time. I do now. So I couldn't exactly see the arrow. It sounded like it hit. Obviously, as you guys know, there's a thwack that is hard to miss. The deer ran off 30 or 40 yards, all 4 of them, out of the plot but standing in some grass that separates to my bigger field. And one of them walked into the timber first. Shortly thereafter, the others kind of followed in. They all walked inside that timber. I waited about 20 minutes, got down. It was pretty dark at that time, and went out, and I had a pretty good idea of where they were standing at the time. Went out, looked for the arrow, looked for blood, found neither. So, as that happens, first things running through my mind is I missed, and, must be rusty or something. You start getting down on yourself right away. So I thought, all right, well, I'm going to go over, and I know where they stood at for a little while, and I'll go over there and I'll check that out. So I went over and kind of looked around where they were standing, and nothing, no blood, nothing, not a speck anywhere. So then I knew exactly where they went into the timber. It's pretty thick right there, and there was, one clear defined opening that they, come in and out of. So I went there, got on my hands and knees about 4 or 5 feet short of the timber, and then up through that trail, just thought, all right, I will find a speck of blood. I mean, if I don't find blood right here, then obviously I didn't, hit anything. So I was doing that, and nothing, no blood anywhere. So I was on my hands and knees because it's real thick. I had a headlamp on, and I look up, and I thought, oh, no, I think that's her right there. Well, it wasn't. It was a big log that had a white bottom on it. It looked just like a belly. So then, now I'm really discouraged because I don't know what else to do. Wait for daylight and have a better chance to find the blood. Needed to find my arrow, but that food plot is extremely thick of brassicas and oats and some fresh clover, and so it's tough to find an unlighted arrow in that. So I was backing out because I couldn't even turn around. I just had to shimmy out backwards, and as I did, I just happened to look left, and laying right there was my doe.
Huh.
Had gone 40 yards, roughly, from where I shot her at to where she laid. Obviously died fairly quick. And I walked up to her, and her stomach contents were all outside of her body. I mean, it just looked like mulched up grass clippings almost. And so I'm thinking, well, what happened here? It happens, I mean, you don't always make the perfect shot. Crazy things happen. And so got her out, got her field dressed. Well, what had happened is my arrow went in on the entry side of the third rib from the back, and it was facing forward. She was quartered away when I shot. And then when it exited out the back rib on the opposite side and was heading back the other way, because you can tell where the impact of the rib and then the exit of the hide was. So it went in quartering two, and then it reversed and went back out the other way somehow. The craziest thing that I've ever seen, but ultimately the exit hole was plugged, so there was no way for any blood to get out. And it wasn't that bad of a shot. I mean, I was probably...
kind of broadhead? Was it G5?
G5 dead meat broadhead. First deer that I'd shot with them. Fantastic. I mean, I'm satisfied with the penetration through the ribs. I mean, it went through 2 ribs essentially. Sure. And then it was a clean pass through, and I still don't know where the arrow went. But it was a good lesson for me, I guess, that even 4 or 5 inches back. But again, she was quartered away, so it wasn't a horrible shot by any means. But you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, once that arrow hits the deer, it can do all sorts of crazy things. And then even with a clean pass through, there was no blood.
Yeah. Well, the arrow can do a lot of different things, and so can the deer, twisting, turning.
And and I think that was it too. I think she was probably wheeling even more away, and ducking and turning, and
bouncing off ribs.
I had Rick came up one year from Florida deer hunting, and he wasn't in the stand 15 minutes probably. Dropped him off, calls me 15 minutes later and says, "Hey, I hit a big one." And I mean, he swears to this day that he hit him broadside. But when you started lining the deer up, once we found him, we didn't find him until midday, but you lined the deer up. The deer he was 40 yards, a long, fairly long shot, and the deer had time to react to the shot and had spun and twisted, and what he thought was a broadside shot was just completely different when it actually impact happened. So that happens.
It does. But ultimately, I was able to recover it. All the meat was good, and got to it right away. And I probably would have backed out until the next day, and then tried to find that arrow. And so now I am running nocturnal lighted nocks on my arrows. And I never used them before because I don't know. I guess I thought, well, I don't video, so what's really the point for me? I never really thought about seeing the arrow's flight and the impact, and then even if you still don't see quite the impact, having a better chance of finding your arrow.
Yeah.
And as you all know, and as most bow hunters do know, that is a huge part of knowing what you're up against is getting a chance to see your arrow.
Yeah.
Or if maybe you don't have a full pass through, you'll see that lighted knock, running away or whatnot. So now my arrows are outfitted with those. And as we talked about, I'm using the G5 dead meat broadheads. They fly really true. They do have their own ballistic match point field tip that you can shoot
Practice.
as well. Yeah, and I had been shooting just regular field tips, and then I threw those on and was shooting those, and they're just dead on.
When you put that lighted knock on there, does your arrow shoot a little different? You haven't tried
I
it?
haven't tried that yet. No,
They're a little bit heavier now.
are they?
Now that you went to a lighted knock,
Right.
so you might
Yeah,
try them.
Yeah.
See if they're shooting the same.
Yeah.
My father-in-law just put lighted knocks on his bolts, his crossbow bolts, and I told him, I'm like, those are heavier than your old knocks, so you might shoot them again. And his were shooting exactly the same.
Okay.
So I think they're starting to get the lighted knocks a lot lighter
Right.
than they used to be. So they're probably shooting very similar to the original knocks.
and I think too, especially with the crossbow is, they're decent speeds in them. And my bow, it's the last time I chronographed it was 292 feet per second, which is a little slower than what it had been, but that's still decent. And I don't plan to. I'd always said, I'm not going to shoot past 40. But the more I sit out there and look at 40, that's a poke.
It is.
It's a long shot.
A lot of things can happen.
Takes some discipline to be accurate and consistent and
Well,
confident.
and even then, you can be as accurate, consistent, and confident as you want, but you don't know what that deer is going to do. And you can think, all right, if they're not on guard, if they're relaxed, that maybe they won't drop. But who's to say? They could drop 10 inches. And then you can also have a deer that's nervous that you think, all right, it's going to drop, so I'm going to aim low. That doesn't. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So the further out there you get, I think the more risky that it is.
Yeah, past 30, you almost got to start aiming low at
Yeah.
that point.
I think did you guys see that? I think it was Grant Woods the
Grant
other
Woods,
day.
yeah.
Did a little study the other day on something, just a deer drop and how much they can. I think they basically reenacted it on some. Was it a balloon or something?
A balloon, yeah. And
Weighted balloon?
They would drop it, and then based on the poundage of the bow and how fast it was shooting. And it's very interesting. You should check out growingdeer.tv or their Facebook channel or their YouTube channel rather, and look at that. I mean, it's kind of eye-opening, especially for some people that maybe haven't thought about it as much or just how much a deer can drop. Yeah. It's unbelievable how much they can drop. So, I've shot both of my does actually were at 32 yards that I've shot. The one buck that I've shot was at 5 steps. So, but 32 yards, I mean, that's kind of pushing it for me. I mean, the other thing, too, the deer I shot that evening, there was a wind that was blowing, I don't know, about 13, I think, at the time, and it was, going from her head to her tail. So that could have played a little bit of a factor into why it was back. But, honestly, I think I'm left-handed, and I think I probably just torqued my bow just a touch, too. But, again, I mean, we're talking 5 inches probably from center
Sure.
mass, So
Were you ladder stand, lock on, banks blind?
I was in a bank stump 4. Actually, the first time I'd even shot out of the banks. Every year I keep saying I'm going to go out, throw a target on the ground, and do a little target practice from this thing. I just never had. I just know that plenty of people have shot from them and said that not much to it.
Sure.
So, and I'm 10 foot off the ground, so it's not like it's a huge angle to kind of get used to. So, worked out really well.
Those blinds let you get by with a lot.
They
these
do.
days.
They really do. And, you kind of get a little spoiled, I guess,
You do. It's not, we started out hunting from tree stands, and then maybe we evolved a little bit to ground blinds, and
Yep.
now we're hunting out of these really nice insulated Taj Mahals,
Yeah.
and they're soundproof and they're scent proof, and it's changed the game. You almost feel a little guilty when you got deer at 5 yards and they can't smell you or hear you. what are your thoughts on it? It's
I
changed
remember-
the way we hunt.
I
big
remember
time.
starting out as a kid, growing up hunting with Dad, and it wasn't even a lock-on. I think we may have had a few lock-ons, but it was permanent stands
right.
built into the
Homemade,
tree.
yeah.
I mean,
2x4s and treated.
Yeah, I mean, it was go out and build a stand, and that's where he hunted, and it's definitely evolved a lot. I think if you guys pay, of course, I do a lot of attention to, other people out killing deer, and it seems like a lot of the the TV shows or just anybody in general, there's a lot of deer killed out of a blind sitting over a food plot, and less deer killed out of a stand itself these days. But which I think you lose a certain aspect of the hunt
Yeah,
from a blind.
for sure.
There's those
Can't hear anything.
there's those sounds and those smells that you just can't beat when you're sitting in a stand. And
It is different, and I do believe that we're going to have a lot of our listeners, or at least a fair amount, that maybe don't look as highly on these types of blinds. I mean,
Yeah.
you see it on social media and stuff, and I understand it is an investment. But for guys like Louie and I that own our own farms, it's permanent. It ain't like we're going to lose permission there anytime soon. We've got young kids. It's a no-brainer when it comes time to taking them out. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Last year I hunted every sit but one. I think I hunted 52 sits last year, and only one of them from a tree.
Wow.
And I didn't plan well enough. But even this year, I mean, I've only got 2 stands, but I've hunted more out of a stand than I have the blind this year so far. But
I think probably one of the biggest benefits I see to a box blind, banks blind, whatever you may have, is just from the kids aspect. We all have kids. I took Spencer out 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
I picked him up and we got dressed and went out and did our thing, crawled in the blind, had some snacks, and we're able to sit there and have a little conversation and have some fun and make it fun.
Yeah.
This day and age, I think we're losing hunters, all the time, and there's less and less people, but getting your kids out there is a big deal to me. I mean, we had the opportunity. We had a 145-inch 10-point come by at 10 yards, and
Yeah.
I elected not to shoot it, but we sat there and watched him out the window and do his thing and go on. And
I was glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Mike's hoping he walks by him here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd have been a tough one for me. That's for sure.
When
Yeah.
you can take these kids to your best spots.
That's
and-
right.
And they can watch videos and make noise, and
Yeah.
unless you got to open that window, you're good. I mean, they're it's,
We watched
it's a
him out-
no-brainer. It's
we
a big
watched him out
investment.
3 or 4 different windows.
Yeah.
Started in one and moved to the next window, and moved the curtain on the next one, and just kind of watched him do his thing. And I think from that aspect was that when I grew up as a kid, it was Dad and I. We had and I remember this vaguely. He probably won't like this story, but I remember going back, and there was this old fallen down oak tree that was perfect because I could sit on one limb, and he could sit right up behind me, but be above me, and I'm tucked in close to him, and he could shoot. And we spent a lot of hunts in that stand. I remember one in particular. I think he missed 5 different times at the same buck, and he.
Oh boy.
I don't
Oh,
believe
boy,
that
yeah.
story for
Yeah,
nothing.
hey, I do.
Oh, my.
I think he started at 50. He shot and missed, and the deer went off, and he grunted, and he came back, missed, and went. It was just back and forth, and it
Was
was.
he shooting a bow?
Yeah, of course you got to remember the bows. I mean, we're talking early 90s. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the technology was.
Wow.
And that timber looks a lot different now than it did then, and you can see.
I just don't know if
You can still see remnants of where that oak tree was. Now there's a banks blind 30 yards away,
Okay.
and Dad spends most of his days in that stand. So it's it was a good time. We had a lot of memories in that. I remember. Well, I could go on and on about that, but anyway, we had a lot of good hunts on that tree. So.
Well, and and while we're on the topic of the blinds, my little boy is 3.5, and I'm trying to debate on what time I want to bring him out or what situation I want to bring him out for. I had thought about doing it early season. We didn't get around to it. I kind of got onto some deer a little bit sooner than I thought I would, and so.
Sure.
We didn't make it out. So now I'm thinking maybe a gun season, either a muzzleloader or gun season. We'll have the heater out there, and I would like him to be with me when I have a chance to, shoot at something, to kind of really get him hooked, I guess. I mean, I think just seeing deer, he would be thrilled about it. And to be honest with you, he'd be happy just to be sitting out there with me. But I want him to be excited about it and have fun. So, I don't know. Some people say that 3.5 is a little young, but I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, he's put a lot of work in with me doing these food plots and stuff. So I think that's kind of part of the whole process, to show him that, you come out here in the summertime, put this work in when it's hot, come out here when it's a little bit cooler now, and you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So.
I took Spencer last year. Spencer's almost 4.5 now. So I took him at what Riker's age is now last year. I asked him if he wanted to go hunting. He knew I was going hunting, and he wanted to go, so we went. And he's this year he understands the concept a lot more. Mm-hmm. That it's learning more that it's hunting, not shooting.
Right.
Last year he thought we were going to shoot a deer.
Yeah.
But it was good to get out and watch the deer. I think that night we went, we saw 10 or 12 deer that were all within 60, 70 yards of us, and he had a good time, but when the night was over and we hadn't shot a deer yet, he wasn't comprehending the why we hadn't killed something.
Yeah.
This year, he's picking up on that more, that, hey, okay, we have to get these deer in range, and, it's a hunt, not a shoot. So I'd tell you, take him out as much as you can. I wouldn't wait on the perfect situation. Just have him in the blinds, probably going to be a learning experience and well worth it, just to get him exposed to it and get him hooked on it.
Yep. No. So we'll make it happen. Honestly, I'm going to wait until the next few weeks are over with, get through the rut a little bit, and because I don't want to be a little on edge when he's there, and these next couple of weeks we can get a little edgy sitting out there. I mean, we're kind of all amped up a little bit, and you don't know what's around the next corner. Whereas a little more late in the season, you see some does coming out, there's less likely chance that, there's going to be a shooter coming out of the woods behind it, and, you can enjoy it a little bit more. So, again, my main concern is just to make it a fun and enjoyable experience, and part of that's on me. So I'm looking forward to the fall. I think it'll be fun. So that's our segment on box blinds, I guess.
Yeah.
They are great.
So you guys want to talk about? I guess we can talk a little bit about what gear we're using this fall, what we typically use. I'm shooting a PSE Dream Season Evo. It's a 2011 or 2012 model. I'm not sure. I bought it used a few years back in 2015. This is my 4th season hunting with it. I love the bow. Shoot it pretty well. It is kind of a faster bow. It's got a shorter brace height, but it fits me quite well. Right now I'm shooting the Gold Tip XT400 Hunter arrows, and then the Gold Tip Dead Meat broadheads. And we were just talking, I'm thinking about maybe switching up my arrows to something a little bit different. Haven't decided on exactly what yet, but so far that combination has worked well for me. Shooting a True Fire release. I think it's called the Chicken Wing, actually.
You keep good memory on what you're shooting.
Yeah, I try to. Of course, it's not that old either. So this is only my 1st year shooting the Dead Meat broadheads. And I've been shooting the same arrows in the last 4 years and same bow. So I did just switch this release over the winter, maybe late last fall. It's a hook style release, and the trigger aspect, or the trigger part of it, come with 2, and one of them was shaped like a W almost, where you could put your pointer finger and your middle finger on it. And I shot that for quite a while, but I'm now back to just shooting it with my trigger finger. And Jamie, that works on my bow at Mike's Bow Shop, he was telling me that it's essentially now another brand or another model of a True Fire release. I don't know, but I like it. It's comfortable. It has the leather wrist strap. With the one I had before was not. It was the nylon one, and It wasn't quite as comfortable. So that's my bow setup. What about you, Lou? What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm excited to be shooting a crossbow. I've been a diehard Hoyt guy for a long time. So I mean, I'm still have my Hoyt and shoot my Hoyt, and still love the sport of archery. But now that Illinois has opened up crossbows, it's kind of fun to play around with those. So I actually invested in a really nice Raven crossbow, and it's just been it's been really fun to shoot. And I harvested a doe with it 2-3 weeks ago, and I still take my bow out and shoot it and practice with it, and I'm going to take it out and hunt with it here during the rut coming up. But the crossbows sure changed the game. Let's be honest, we don't have as much time as we probably need to practice enough to be real confident with our vertical bows. If we're going to effectively start harvesting animals at 30, 40, 50 yards with our vertical bow, it takes quite a bit of practice to be good at that distance. And I'd love to have the time to be able to shoot my vertical bow at those yardages and get confident with it. But now in Illinois, we don't have to rely completely on our vertical bows. We can take a crossbow out. So it's added more confidence, I guess. Every time I go out, I'm really confident in that Raven and its capabilities. And, it's unfair at long distances what that crossbow can do. I'm not saying that it's a great idea to shoot anything with a crossbow or a vertical bow at 70, 80, 90 yards, but when you're out there practicing and you're shooting 1-inch, 2-inch groups at 70, 80 yards, it's
makes you feel pretty darn good at 50.
It's fun. Yeah, you can't shoot at the same spot at 50 with that Raven, or
right.
you'll break every bolt.
Should be deadly on squirrels.
Yeah, we need to talk about squirrels this episode.
Yeah, squirrel land.
I just about bought some G5 small game broadheads the other day
for squirrels.
Yeah. So.
Love it. As far as I'm shooting a Raven crossbow. I've got a Hoyt. Bow. I'm always an Easton guy when it comes to arrows. I've always been a New Archery Products NAP broadhead guy. I got Spitfires screwed on. I've got Killzone screwed on. Just tried and true. I don't know if anybody makes a tougher, sharper broadhead than NAP. But everything out there that you buy at your local sporting goods store is good, though. I mean, there's no doubt. We're gear guys. I mean, that's all we, and we're not thinking about managing our properties and deer and turkeys. We're thinking about the gear that we're using. I mean, we could. Oh my gosh, we don't want to. Our wives don't need to know what we spend on.
Negative.
Just broadheads.
I'll pretend you didn't just say that.
Yeah.
Well, they don't
listen to this.
They don't listen to this.
No, I don't. I don't
They
think we'll
don't
have
listen,
to worry
so
about that. But
we're good.
There's so many gadgets out there these days that
Oh my gosh.
sometimes you gotta.
I just love
draw
it
the
all.
line somewhere.
I just love it all.
Yeah.
We could talk hours about blinds. We could talk hours about our cameras that we swear by, our broadheads. It just makes the sport even more, just so much more enjoyable.
yeah,
It's just like the game of golf. You talk to somebody that's a golfer, and all they want to talk about is what clubs you're hitting and your new TaylorMade driver and what are you hitting a Pro V golf ball. Hunting is, it's even worse. I mean, you've got 20 different tools at your disposal that you're taking with you out in the field.
Well, and the hunting industry in particular, I mean, it's always what's the next mousetrap that's coming out, and a lot of times you'll see something for 2 or 3 years, and either it takes off or it doesn't. So, and there's so many other things too. I mean, we can get into. I'm sitting here looking at a scent crusher closet, and I know we all use ozonics and stuff like that. But when we really get deep into some of this other gear, I mean, we'll kind of save that for a separate podcast.
Whole different. I saw somebody wearing Sitka gear on our hunt tonight.
Yeah. So
Just to go hunting a Banks blind.
Just to go hunting a Banks blind. I mean, who would have thought? And I'm over here wearing scent lock pants and a hoodie and Nomad undershirt and hat, and So yeah, I wear whatever is comfortable and does the trick, and they have in my size because when you've got my svelte figure, you can't always find everything in stock. So. So as far as that goes, what about you, Mr. Sellens? What kind of?
What gear am I using this year? Well, actually, I just went out behind the house the other day and got me a hickory stick and whittled out a new bow this year. So
longbow.
No, I'm kidding. Novel idea, but I don't have the time for that either. So
Yeah,
I'm still shooting Matthews, true and true. So it's I know Louis over here is a Hoyt man, has been for years, and
Matthews makes a great bow.
I've been a Matthews guy, and I don't by any means have a new model year bow, but what I've got works great and shoots well. It's accurate, and I think I've got a DXT. I've probably had it for the better part of probably close to 10 years. Probably
DXT's
probably
at least
every
10
bit of
years.
it. I mean, it's
Probably 12
yeah.
or 14 years.
I don't have any complaints on it, so.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like with my bow, this PSE Dream Season Evo, I'm left-handed. Seen it on Facebook for sale. Seemed like a good price to me, and hadn't been used much. And so that's how I ended up with that. I wasn't necessarily brand specific. Looking back on it, I'm glad I bought it because it is a higher end bow. I mean, when it come out, it was kind of like their flagship model.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, as you hear, I mean, you're a Hoyt guy and you're shooting Matthews and I'm shooting PSE, but we all just kind of like what we have and they're effective and we're comfortable with them, and so we just keep shooting them.
A lot of good stuff. The most important part's who's working on your bow. I mean, if we can shoot any kind of brand under the sun, it's the guys that set it up are the most important.
No, and that's something else. I mean, we'll get into later on, but we all kind of have our, our own guys probably that we feel comfortable with. And there's not just one good one out there. I'm sure there's lots of good ones out there. So if you find one that works, by all means, stick with them. If they're treating you right and setting you up right and will listen to you and take care of you. I mean, that's the thing I know about my guy. I mean, I just know he's going to take care of me. He's not going to try to sell me something I don't need or set me up with something that's going to set me up for failure. So that's the most important thing. I have confidence once it's set up and ready to go that it's going to shoot well. And if it's not, it's because of me and not the equipment.
Sure.
So that's kind of a rundown of our gear.
You know what I'm excited about, Mike?
What's that, Lou?
That's that logo, that Deerland logo.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about where Deerland is right now. So we really got this ball rolling first part of October, I think, when Lou sent me a message and said, hey, man, you want to do this, I'll do it with you. And it wasn't 24 hours later. I was already buying domain names and setting up social media accounts and stuff like that, and making sure that, we could get everything that we were going to need before we got going. And since then, it's moved awfully fast. Here we are the 1st of November, so we're coming up on probably about 4 weeks since we really got going on this thing. So, with this social media type of venture that we're undertaking here, which is something that none of the three of us are extremely adept to or experts at or very, very good at. We're kind of that age, as we've talked about. We're all in our mid-30s, 34, 35, 36. We're kind of that in-between where we had a little bit of the, the digital age, but we still had some that wasn't. So we can kind of fall behind on the current trends sometimes. And with this social media, I mean, it's an art form, and that's something that I've learned. But we all are businessmen, I guess, owning businesses of some sort. We understand the value of branding and brand awareness, and so we knew that we needed to come up with something that was catchy, that was appropriate for the message we're wanting to put across, and that looked professional, because we do want this to be a professional production, and yet still fun. We were talking about before we started recording. I mean, we're not going to be scripted by any means, but it's not going to be just an extreme blabbering mess the whole time. But we are going to sit here and shoot the breeze a little bit. So we're very fortunate that kind of our fourth guy of this, in a way, is Mr. Ryan Kirby. We all consider him a great friend. He's one of us, I guess, and he's been an extreme help in getting us branded for now. So he has created our logo. So if you see any of our profile pictures or the podcast cover art, anything that is a logo of the Deerland podcast, that is due in part to Ryan Kirby and Ryan Kirby Art. You'll see that the deer in that is one of his very works. Was it from Scrape Line?
Scrape Line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all just, thrilled about how it turned out. I mean, and he kind of did it on his own, gave us some ideas, and we told him, there was a couple we kind of liked, and then this final product, he did it, and, we were all just blown away. And so we're very thankful to have that, and we're going to use Ryan as we go on as well. I was just asking him about an app that he uses for some social media stuff, and he's kind of been down this road already. And you talk about, somebody that has become extremely successful, not only in just the work that he does, but how he's able to market it and his social media presence and how he's grown that. And, he comes from the same place we do. So I know we can do it. It's just going to take a little bit of time and a learning curve. And we're thankful to have Ryan Kirby Art as our one partner right now. Maybe down the road we'll have a few more partners on board with us. But right now we've got Ryan and some awesome artwork to go along with it. So, and also I do believe that Mr. Kirby is going to be back a week from tonight, he's hoping, and we're definitely going to at least get one podcast recorded with him, and that should be a fun and entertaining evening for us, and I think for the listeners as well. We'll have some good topics to talk about that night. So that's a little bit of us shooting the breeze, I guess. Let's move on to the topic of the day. And I think what we're going to talk about is just deer movement the last couple weeks and the next couple weeks. As we said, it's November 1st today. I'm hoping to have this podcast coming online this Monday, the 5th, I'm hoping. So, it won't be very long. So it won't be outdated information by any means. But as everyone that's listening knows, when November comes, that means the rut is coming. The deer are going to start acting a little bit different. Their movements are going to be different. Their patterns are going to be totally different. And they're really not going to have a pattern.
Sure.
It just kind of goes crazy. So why don't we talk about the last couple weeks? Since we recorded this last time, kind of what we're seeing. As far as the deer movement, their feeding patterns or just their patterns in general, and what you've been seeing leading up, here to 1st of November.
If you've got trail cameras out and you don't have them on scrapes lately, you're probably missing some
scrapes
things.
Are on fire.
Scrapes have been on fire lately, and that's just kind of kicked off here in the last 10 days or so.
Sure.
Yeah, I just posted that picture the other day on Instagram. I hunted this spot Monday morning. And there wasn't a scrape there. Or there was a small scrape there. And then I come back and hunted Wednesday, and there was a massive scrape with a licking branch that was snapped in half, a pretty good-sized licking branch at that, actually, that had been snapped in half. And a huge scrape there at that point. So this is also the same spot that Sunday morning I had two deer come by at daylight, and then I hunted. No, that was Saturday morning, and then I hunted Sunday morning and Monday morning and didn't see him. And then I come back Wednesday afternoon, and that big scrape had been there. So just
scrapes are hot right now, but that's something that's going to in the next week or so that's probably going to die off some, I would think,
for a little while. And then they may pick back up a little bit later. You'll see a little bit more, but
what I've seen a lot of lately, just being out hunting, is a lot of the younger age class deer, some 2-year-olds, few 3-year-olds out running around. There's a few 4-year-olds that have been up on their feet in daylight and checking a few things out, but we give it another week at most, I would say, and things are going to should be hitting on all cylinders. I mean, it's that time of the year. It's November. The calendar flips over that you've put the time in the stand, and my philosophy has always kind of been is you've got your trail camera history. This time of the year, you've got bonus bucks that show up. I always kind of say is you can take some of those trail camera photos you have and not pay a whole lot of attention to him because that buck may be here. He may be on a neighboring farm.
Yeah.
This is your time of the
You may
year.
see deer you've never seen before. too.
Exactly. The rut and late season winter food sources are the times of the year, in my opinion, that you're most likely to see a deer that you've never laid eyes on or even had a picture of in the past.
I've been lucky to hunt a lot of different farms, probably, 10 to 15 different farms in my lifetime, and everyone seems a little different, as far as when the does are maybe coming in and when the bucks are cruising the best. And, I think it all depends on how many does you got compared to how many bucks and all the ratios and stuff. But, on this farm in particular that I've got close to 3 years of history with, November 5th, 6th, 7th is when things really get heated up, and that'll go for 10 or 15 days. Last year, opening day of shotgun season was the best day of hunting I had. I hunted all day, and it was nonstop. So it's just different from farm to farm. Like I've got a lot of cameras on scrapes, and my scrapes have went kind of cold. Like where you guys were hunting tonight. I just checked that camera, and it's there isn't much on that scrape. And
we had
10 days prior there was a lot.
We had a 2-year-old working it a little
you
bit
guys
tonight.
you guys saw a buck tonight that I don't have pictures of at all. Velvet. He just showed up, and he's young.
Right.
He's going to be a great deer, but
He's on the move, obviously.
right. I think things are starting to get pretty active, and bucks are moving around a lot.
It's that time of the year that a lot of guys prior to now have paid a lot of attention to cold fronts, weather patterns, high pressure systems. There just comes a point sometimes where there's that time of the year where
Just go.
It's that time to
Right.
just go. If you've got the time to dedicate to it and you've got time to go hunting, just go get in the stand. Spend
I'd say the next 5 to 7 are your best chance of killing something big. And then after that, it's going to get a little hard.
You think so? That
Yeah.
soon?
They're going to
Yeah.
they're going to get on lockdown.
Yeah.
As they get on lockdown, they're going to be harder to kill, and you're going to find them, going from doe to doe. But I think Mrs. Doe Peas up in Mount Pleasant. I don't know if you follow their Facebook page, but I saw the other day they had a doe in heat and getting bred. So, it's that time of the year. It's getting right that they're, you're going to see. I always see a pattern over the years that it's your 2 and 3 year olds are on their feet.
Yeah.
To start with, and then there's that time frame where it's the older bucks.
Sure.
They know it's time to be up and going.
There's always some does that are early. The hardest time is when a lot of them are in heat, and then it's just lockdown, and it's hard to catch up with one because he's 24 hours a day. He's with a hot doe.
So I think I talked about this a little bit on the first episode, but last year, October 28th, was the first big cold front that we had of October, and so I went and sat over my large field. I could see a lot, and I obviously had one of the first does to come in, and I had a buck parade come through. My number one target buck was coming through. Some I'd never seen. One buck come through that morning that I got a picture of him, seen him on the hoof, never seen him again after that.
Sure.
And from there till November 2nd, I had just a steady stream of deer, and they were going to the same spot, coming in and out at the same area. So I am positive that I had a doe coming in, and one of them probably got to her at some point. And actually, I did have a day where this 5-year-old that I'm after this year was hoping to shoot him last year too, but he always gets busted up, and he was busted up again last year. He went in there, and I sat all day, was sitting in a blind, which was great because I could see everything, but I just could never get close from that vantage point last year. But I watched him go in to the timber at 8:30 in the morning, and then he didn't leave till 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm sure he was in there with the doe because there was a doe hanging out in that area as well. So I think he's the one that probably ended up getting that hot doe. And they also say that sometimes these deer will kind of remember if an area has a doe that tends to come in early or first, that you'll start seeing some bucks come back year after year about the same time. But I don't believe that I've got one getting close yet. I haven't seen any camera activity that would state that, or any observations from the field. So I've seen a year and a half, 2.5, chasing a little bit, but that's been about it so far. As far as the feeding goes, I mean, I've noticed at least one of my timber stands, the acorns just aren't dropping near as much as they had been, a couple weeks ago. I think, obviously we're going to continue to see that happening. The weather has been, kind of normal, I guess, but it's been a little warmer than what I would like it to be. We've had some low pressure here lately, some cloudy skies, a little bit of rain, chances of rain. So I think that's kind of changed the feeding a little bit. I mean, I've got clover, standing beans, and then some greens inside the standing beans. And last night I hunted the big 4-acre plot, and the deer come out and milled around in the clover for a little while, and then moved on. They didn't mess with the beans at all. They went back to the timber, so I'm assuming maybe they're still cleaning up some of the acorns that are inside the timber right now. But
that'll all change in time.
It will. I mean, it's getting to that point where we're going to see that change as well, I think. So, and as Louis was just saying too, he's hunted a lot of farms and can tell you that, different farms kind of operate on a different type of time schedule, even not being geographically separated by much. And what I've noticed in the 4 years that I've hunted my farm, this is the 4th bow season that I've hunted it, I seem to be that second week of November seems to be a little bit better for me. I'll have a little bit early on where I think maybe, 1 or 2 are coming in, and then it kind of dies off for a while. But if I had to pick, a 5-day window, I'm probably hunting the 7th to the 12th in there. But I've also seen a huge amount of chasing going on opening shotgun weekend these last couple of years. And, we've kind of timed it where it's the earliest in the month that it's going to be, and every year, it gets a day later until the calendar resets. But 2 years ago, Friday was really good. Last year, Friday and Saturday was decent for some buck activity. So I don't know what's going to happen this year. The next 5 days does not look to be the best. If anybody out there is using the new Drury app, DeerCast, they've got different levels, and a lot of times it's good or great. Sometimes it's okay, but these next 5 days there's a lot of okay and a lot of poor, and that's going to make it a little bit tougher, I believe. But like we talked about off the air, and Louis hit on a little bit, and Tyler did as well, it's November, and if you have a chance to hunt and you have a place to go that you can get into that that has a safe wind and you can get into it and get out of it, I don't know why you wouldn't be out there, because even this weekend, November 1st, 2nd, 3rd, anything's possible.
Sure.
It's all on the table right now.
Yeah, don't put all your cards into an app. I mean, it's kind of like betting on the weatherman these days. If it's
especially in November.
If the conditions are right and you've got time to go hunt, put some time in the stand, get out there. I mean, you just never know if you're waiting on that right deer. If you've got a target deer or something. I mean, you're not. If you're hunting one deer, it's time in the stands what it's going to take. I mean,
well, I'm telling you, even if the conditions aren't right, if it's raining and I have a chance to go hunting, I'm going to be sitting in a blind and I'm going to be hunting. As we just talked about a little bit ago, I mean, I had 3 bucks, 1 shooter out there a couple weeks ago, early, an hour before sunset, and it was raining and they were out there eating the clover. So during the rut, maybe a storm, a violent storm, downpours, I'm not going to be out in lightning, but, a good steady rain, or even if it's pouring, I think it's going to let up before the end of legal shooting light, I'm going to get out there, man. I mean, you only get so many Novembers in life, so I want to take advantage of all of them that I can. That's for sure. So let's talk about what our plans are these next couple weeks.
Just hit it hard. Try to get out there as much as you can, especially. I've got the weekend coming up here. Weather's, it's not too bad. I wouldn't say it's cold by any means. I mean, obviously we'd like a little bit colder, but it's not
above
it's
average.
not warm either.
No.
And we've got a little rain in the forecast, so just got to put your hours in and don't get discouraged, don't get burnt out. going to your best spots in the morning, but man, it's hard for me to sit in certain places in the afternoons and evenings, especially when those thermals are dropping and it's so easy to get winded when you're way back in the timber, and wind might be a little swirly and the thermals are pushing your scent down. I like to hunt my best spots. I mean, I would love to think I could still sit in the same tree all day long, but it's really, really hard to do. I'm way better at sitting somewhere till 11 or noon, getting down, and then getting back out to a different spot that might not be as invasive for the afternoon sit. And that just seems to work good on this place, but it's different. It's different everywhere. I mean, you might not have that.
If I had one recommendation to do, is this time of the year, if not knowing which day is going to be hitting on all cylinders, is throw you a bottle of water, a few snacks in your backpack. I've had many times I went out and thought I was going to hunt till 10, 11 o'clock, come back, grab some lunch, get a little work done, head back out at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 12 o'clock things are still moving and deer are on their feet, and I don't want to leave, and I end up sitting there all day, and that can turn into a long, dry, hungry hunt. But
and that's something that I definitely am going to do as well, because that's happened to me before. So you want to be prepared for an all-day sit. But as Louie was talking about, I'm learning as I go along here, and a lot of learning is just trial and error, finding something that works, something that doesn't work, and doing something different. And so, these last few years, I've had a lot of sits where, I'm sitting in one spot all day long, a lot of times close to food, and that's just not the best place to be during the rut, especially, mornings, midday. My strategy going forward is I've got a couple stands set up that are in the timber, and it's not in deep timber by any means, but it's in timber that I think a cruising buck would feel safe to come by, one for a north wind, one for a south wind. So my strategy is going to be hunting one of those stands inside the timber in the mornings, maybe even through midday, and then if I can, try to get back to the house. And luckily, I'm usually only a few hundred yards from the house. Grab a bite to eat, get a little relaxation in before I get back out there, and then hunt probably food of an evening. One of the food plots out of the blind, more than likely. So that's going to be my strategy. The other upside to the one blind in particular is I can see a lot, and I can figure out if there's a certain area these deer are using that maybe I need to try to find a way to get in there. That's what I did last year. I had them patterned. I just didn't have the means to get set up on them. I'm set up in those locations or near those locations now. We'll see if they do the same things this year that they did last year, which is obviously not even remotely guaranteed to happen. So, but right now, I've been hunting a lot of mornings. I've actually been hunting some mornings and not some afternoons, but my movement's been slow. The one timber stand that I've been hunting, I've gotten skunked the last 3 sits in it. I think I sat in it maybe 3 times before that and had a lot of activity, a lot of buck activity coming through there. But again, the acorns were more plentiful at that point. But this is also a stand that I'm seeing my number one target buck coming by, freshening up a scrape, checking. There's a few doe trails that come out of this strip of timber, and I think he's checking them as he comes through. So it's going to be quality over quantity. And, for a guy like me, that can be tough sometimes. But, this year I've just taken a whole new approach to the hunting, that I'm not getting discouraged. If I sit there 3 times in a row and I don't see a deer, I'm not ready to throw the towel in. It helps when you get trail camera pictures of daylight activity of your shooter, but you just know that this is my best opportunity for this deer to come by. I'm not out here to shoot does. I've already shot a doe this year. I'm out here to kill a mature buck, and I believe that location is a good spot to be in, especially these next couple weeks. So I'm going to try to hunt smart. I've got four locations, 2 stands, 2 blinds. They each have their most beneficial wind to hunt. Some of them you can kind of, do more than one wind, but so I feel like I should be covered regardless of the wind where it's at. It may not be the best spot, but if it's the safest spot, that's probably what I'm going to choose to do.
And something I would probably touch on, Mike, is when you're going to choose a stand location, if you've been out and you're checking trail cameras, is go off that most recent information. If you've got deer hitting an area, don't ignore it.
That's right.
Use that to your advantage. I mean, that is
it's a good time of year to check your cameras way more than you think you should.
And I haven't been doing that.
Yeah.
And as we were talking, when you come and picked us up on the Ranger tonight, you're like, there's a camera right here where this buck was scraping at. I'm going to check the camera. Well, you had your cards with you. And I keep forgetting to bring mine. And I just at least need to throw a few in because there's no logical reason that when I walk right by a camera going into the stand that I don't check it.
Check them.
And
I check them every single time.
I don't care if I hunted that spot the morning and then I'm coming back from the afternoon, check it.
You might see something on there that
you just never know. So, and that's I got lucky. I checked cameras last Saturday, and that shooter was there that morning. I mean, so I knew right away, okay, he was right there. It was just a fluke that I chose to check cameras and not hunt. That's a good point.
I will check cameras going into a stand. And if I've checked it walking in, a lot of times I'll have a card reader or something with me. I can check it. And if I'm walking back out by that camera, I'll glance at it to see if there's been
any activity.
Because it may be just a field edge stand, and I've went on past it to get to my primary stand for the evening. But that most recent information this time of the year is key.
Yeah.
That's going to be the don't come December 1st and go check cameras and realize where you should have been hunting.
Yeah.
November 10th. So.
Well, yeah, and a lot of your cameras this time of year should be on scrapes, on edges, and that's should be a spot where you can either drive your truck up to, or your four-wheeler, or your Ranger, or at least walk to it without, getting too close to the bedding area. And just because he's there at midnight, that doesn't mean he's too far.
Right, especially this time of year. You can take all the rules and throw them right out the window this time of year. You really can.
Winds, some people I'm super conservative probably on winds in October when it comes November and the rut and things are really moving. Some marginal winds, I'll push some limits on some stands and have some great hunts on it. So
because the other thing too is 50 weeks out of the year for the most part, a buck's number one focus is survival and staying alive. These other 2 weeks, his number one focus is not staying alive. It's other activities. And it really does happen. I mean, they don't become totally ignorant, but they start doing some pretty crazy stuff and throwing some inhibitions out. No different than what a lot of men do, I guess. You get a few drinks in, 21-year-old at the bar in college, and, sometimes your priorities change a little bit. So it's no different. So you can get away with a little bit more of a marginal wind. I don't know if I would knowingly go out and hunt a horrible wind, but you can push it a little bit because there's still a chance that he's going to blow right on by you and not even recognize what he smelled, or by the time he figures it out, he's not going to know where it came from because he's got his nose sniffing a different scent than what yours is blowing off. So, this is it, guys. I mean, it's the rut. It's November 1st. It's what we look forward to, and it'll be gone before you know it.
Yeah.
And,
November's already here. That's what's crazy.
It is. Mm-hmm. And then, next thing you know, it's gun season. So to me, I always kind of break the year up a little bit, and you've got October early season, and then you've got, that last few days of October all the way up through our first gun season, which is always the weekend before Thanksgiving. This is hunting time. I save vacation for this.
Rutcation.
Yeah. I don't foresee a day that I don't hunt from now until November 18th, which is, Sunday of second season. So, or of first season. I'm sorry. But it's time to put your money where your mouth is, I guess.
Right.
We've done all this work, all this preparation, and, all this dreaming, I guess, and now is your best opportunity. It doesn't mean that if you're not successful, these next 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, that you can't still be. Especially in, our situations, we've done a lot of work with food plots and stuff. And, the main focus the main purpose as far as the hunting aspect of the food plots goes is late season, get through first gun season, even second gun season into muzzleloader season. That's when you can really start seeing, your standing grains and your brassica plots really getting hit and taken off. You get into December and then later from there. So, I'm really not going to feel as discouraged as I had in years past when all that I had was a cut crop field to hunt over that was picked clean by the 1st of December. So I don't know what else you guys are wanting to hit on while we're here. I guess, let's talk a little bit more about Deerland and Deerland HQ, which we're at here at the North Breck Farm, the Zen Homestead. I think we're going to kind of adopt this location as our place to be. Louis was kind enough to let Tyler and I both come out here and hunt this evening, even though I had to go buy a license and a tag because I'm not hunting on my own land. But it was a good time. I haven't told him yet, but I'm coming back before the season's over with.
Yeah.
And you can go sit in the gar hole again.
Yeah, and I'll sit in that gar hole.
I didn't let you know, Louis, but Mike's pretty well got the rest of the season planned down here.
Yeah.
He says I didn't spend $40 for nothing.
Yeah.
Here, so.
You can always have that spot up there, Mike.
Yeah, I didn't spend $40 to come out here and sit for one night. So
there's a couple does up there and a little buck that'll get you excited probably every time he comes out.
And there's you showed me one of your coals, and I would be very happy to shoot this coal buck. So.
Do yourself a favor, Mike, before you leave. Take a picture of that Huntera map over there.
Oh yeah, and study it.
Very informative and useful.
Well, I don't know. Do all of us use OnX?
I should have took all those little
pins down,
marker pins down. Yeah.
I'll tell you that the blind that I hunted tonight, that Banks blind tonight, I like it. It's not a very long walk. It's easy to get to, and
that's not what you said when we got there.
Awfully comfortable. Well, it's longer than I have to walk to get to my places, but my farm is about a sixth the size. So,
did you like the stealth screens?
Let's talk about that. And you and I kind of talked about it, and then I found out that they had it, and we were both going to get it. And I don't know. I talked myself out of it. I wanted to see what it looked like in person first. It is a great idea. I mean, we were like waving at the deer, standing out, looking right at us and waving. They can't see anything.
No.
It has pros and cons.
That is great. Your depth perception in it is crazy, like focusing. It was just odd to try to focus.
It's hard on your eyes.
And when you get in low light, it can get a little tougher. But when I called Mitch Banks at Banks Blinds and was talking to him about it, he had told me that what he normally does is the top third he will cut off so he can still stand up to look out in low light, and he says that works very well for him.
It's not a bad idea.
I'm thinking about making the move and doing it.
For the folks that don't know what the heck we're talking about, the stealth screen it's an adhesive that you can put on the window, and it will allow you to look out the window. But if you're on the outside of the blind looking in, it just looks like camo. It's kind of like that Primos double bull blind.
It's a perforated vinyl product is what it is.
And it's kind of no different than what people put in the back window of their trucks.
Right.
It's like a window tint almost.
I always use McDonald's as an example. You drive up to McDonald's, you see advertisements across the windows, but you can't see in, but you go on the inside, you look out, you can look outside just fine. It's the same concept in the deer blind. I think it's like we've talked, I think all of us have, it's got its pros, it's got its cons a little bit.
So does the other with just the wide open window and the curtain kit.
We got by with a lot tonight as far as Mike and I, we had a deer looking right at the blind, and I purposely put my hand right by the window and waved at the deer just to see if it would do anything. And
nobody can see you waving your hand,
I know
by
that.
the way.
I know nobody can see me do that. But waving at the deer, he had no idea what I was doing. Had the stealth screens not been on it, that deer would he'd have been gone. He would have seen that in a heartbeat and been out of there. So
I don't know.
In the right situations and the right settings where the blinds are, I think they are very beneficial and going to let you get by with even more than without them.
Yep. So I've got blinds in a couple spots that if you've got if you don't have the curtain kit up and you're at the right angle, you can look all the way through that blind. You can look through one window and out the other, and the deer, they come unglued when they see that because they're not used to seeing that because we have our curtains up.
Right.
So this stealth screen is going to save my butt doing, on those blinds because now they're just going to look up there and see camo. On the flip side, though, when a deer comes out to a food plot and looks up at that fancy blind and sees camo his whole life, and then when we go in there and hunt and maybe we have to open that window,
there's no more
he's
camo there.
He's going to look up there and see a black hole. it's
know,
a
I
tricky.
think-
And maybe
deal.
we're looking into that too much. I don't know, but
I think in low light they're not going to see the camo versus the black hole, but if it's
I think the happy medium to all of the do you put the stealth screen on or not, and the black hole is if you could get this stealth screen where it was like a matte black on the window.
Yeah, just
would
black.
be the happy medium that would probably be
which
the,
I'm sure they
they
can
do. And,
that.
and I've looked, and you can find that stuff.
And we battle it with these Banks blinds, but the guys battle the same thing with when they're setting up their double bulls on a cut cornfield. The black hole.
Right.
The deer just have to get used to it.
There's some other companies other blind companies out there that have the windows tinted
Yes.
as a way to do that. But when you get in the right light conditions,
You still see through it.
That
Yeah.
tinting, you can look straight through it all.
Yep.
And there's actually with the stealth screen, I have looked at certain angles, and you can see daylight.
You
all the
still
way
can.
through.
If you
Yes.
line two windows up, you can
Yeah.
still kind of
But not
see
as
through,
bad.
but not
Yeah.
as.
I don't think the deer are going to be bothered as much.
So I'm still going to try to find a solution. I mean, as you know, last year I come up with my own ingenuity, and what I did is I got some just mesh netting, camo mesh netting, and I cut it the size of the curtains. And what I did is I cut 3 layers of it and hooked them together with zip ties and a washer, and then that could hook onto the magnets that are on the side of the blind. And when it's bright out, you have all 3 layers there, and as it progressively gets darker and darker, you can flip up one of those layers, and then there's less to see through. And that's what I did last year, and it was effective. But I think there is a better solution, and I do like this stealth screen idea. But I'm with you on the black thing. So I will probably try to find some sort of a solution for like a black vinyl that goes on there. The stuff is kind of cashy. I mean, if somebody gets on Banks' website and sees what they're asking, they're going to say, man, that's outrageous. But you go to look just by the material, and it's not cheap. And, you buy the stealth screen kit, and it's already pre-cut, the right size and everything, and easy for you. So
I went to a sign shop one day. I thought maybe I had the black idea in my mind to do that. And I walked in, and I quickly learned that I'll just, the Banks just buy the stealth screens and put them on is a lot simpler.
Yeah.
You might save a couple bucks, but it wasn't going to be much. So
Sure.
I mean, they've got their place. If you've got a blind that's out in the middle, or a lot of opportunities to look through and see daylight. If you've got, that's where they come in play. If you've got something that's more in the timber or small plot, that's a place you can probably get by with not having any of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, that's the blinds again, I guess. But here, this is going to be our new home. We're out here in kind of your man cave garage, and it's a pretty nice setup actually. Better than what I thought. I'm used to my garage, and it's not quite like this. And I think this is going to be a good place for us to meet. And again, you get to sit here and look at some great deer on the wall, and kind of get you in that mood. And it also doesn't hurt when you get a chance to hunt the farm right before you come in and podcast. So,
Well, if we hunt every time we do a podcast here, I'm sure, Mike, we're going to be doing one every day here.
yeah.
Next 12,
Well,
14 days.
No, I'm ready to hunt my own farm right now. I've got a couple deer that I gotta put some time in for, and when I'm sitting out here tonight, I'm thinking, man, I hope nothing shows up on my camera tonight while I'm down here
will.
instead of there.
I asked Mike tonight when we were sitting in the blind, I said, what do you do when Freak Nasty steps out? There was zero hesitation as to whether or not he was going to shoot that deer. He was going to shoot him.
No, that's not what I said. And
That is-
This podcast would be a little awkward.
yeah. So he did.
If you shoot the big one out here.
He did propose that question, and I, without hesitation, said I would not even think about reaching for my bow, just as I would know how it would be if I had you guys hunting my farm, and one of my shooters come out, and but I thought on it more, and we were talking about it a little bit more, and there are caveats to that. If it was a deer that maybe somebody had never shot one, or the biggest one they'd ever had, and
If you shot a pile of 150s and a 150 steps out,
and then you shoot a 150 and you've already shot 6 150s. I mean, then it's like, all right, come on. I haven't even shot that yet. But no, I mean, we all put a lot of work into our farms, and I think we respect each other's farms. And honestly, it could have been a 180-inch deer, and I would have enjoyed watching it and taking pictures of it. And I mean that to the bottom of my heart. But that coal buck, if he would have come out, the one that wasn't busted up, I would have shot him, and I'd have been happy with him. But I'm part of me's glad that he didn't, and I'll come back after gun season and try to take some of these coals off your hands at that point if I have any buck tags left. I'm hoping by the time gun season's over with, I don't have any buck tags left to use, but I got plenty of doe tags, so I can always come and help you take care of the doe population. But
doe farm.
Well, this is fun, and we need to just plan on doing this.
Yeah, and that's the plan, guys. I mean, we're going to try to have regular content. I really, really want to be able to give you an episode every week. I know how it is for the podcast that I listen to. If they're not giving out regular content, you kind of lose interest a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a catch-22. Right now is the time to be talking deer hunting, but we're doing a lot of deer hunting too.
Yeah.
And we have demanding careers, and we have families and wives and kids. But we're still going to try our best to give you an episode every week. We would love to hear back from you on some podcast topics that you would like to hear. We would like to talk about stuff that people want to hear about, and we would love to hear back from you on that. Any guests that you would like to hear, any suggestions, let us know, and we will do our best to get on who we can. Right now we're new, so we don't really have much pull in the outdoor industry or the podcasting world at this point. But we're hoping to change that and get some of these episodes out there for people to listen to, hear what we have to offer and kind of who we are and what we're about. And we're hoping that that will be good enough to get some guests on here and talk about some entertaining and informative topics. So, as Steve Rinella would say on Meat Eater, any concluders? Any final thoughts from any of you guys before we wrap this episode up?
Man, I'm just really excited about the next 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, I've had some really good hunts, even November 18th through the 25th. I mean, Thanksgiving can be a great day. So this is what we dream about is the next 20 days.
Yep.
So
it's the holy grail of deer hunting, that's for sure.
That's right.
This whole month. So. And it will go by quick, guys. I mean,
oh man,
we work 50 weeks out of the year to hunt these 2 weeks.
Really, and then I guess I use some of my time for turkey season too. But even then, that's becoming less and less because turkey season you can kind of be done with by 8 o'clock if you had to be. If you're not on anything, you can safely call it a day and go to work. But during the rut, it's hard to get out of that stand, before 10 o'clock at all. So I think that's going to wrap it up here for episode number 2 of the Deerland Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And you can find us at Deerland Podcast at all of those. Also, you can check us out on our website, deerlandpodcast.com. Make sure if you find us on iTunes or Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, any of the places where you catch your podcasts at, subscribe, like, comment. The more interaction we get there, the more subscriptions and likes and downloads and listens we get, the better exposure we get on those platforms, and maybe we can kind of start building our listenership up. But that's going to come from a lot of you guys out there. So again, we hope that you enjoyed this episode number 2. We've enjoyed bringing it to you, and we're already looking forward to the next one to come here pretty soon. So best of luck to you. Enjoy this first week in November, and we'll see you soon.